This webinar is provided by Pennsylvania's System for LEA and School Improvement. It was developed by the Urban Schools Human Capital Academy. The focus is recruiting, selecting, and retaining teachers in shortage areas. Districts across the country are facing severe shortages of teachers, especially in certain areas such as math, science, special education, career and technical education, and bilingual education, and also in specific schools, urban, rural, high poverty, high minority, and low achieving. Research suggests that while some attrition is expected and necessary, persistent shortages can be costly for districts and have negative impacts on workforce quality, student outcomes, and school climate. Further, staffing inadequacies and turnover tend to have the greatest impact on schools and students that can afford it the least. Many experts argue that efforts to address shortages should be less about recruiting teachers generally and more about recruiting and retaining the right teachers in the right subjects for the right schools. The focus and through line of this session will be the goal of having an effective teacher for every student. Some subtopics that we should keep in mind. The goal of an effective teacher for every student is challenged by the diminishing supply of teachers. Shortage areas are at the highest risk for unfilled vacancies that are damaging to students, often high-need students. Shortage areas must have differentiated strategies for recruitment and retention efforts must be intentional in shortage areas in order to reduce vacancies. The outcomes for this session, as we listen, reflect, and plan, are to receive an overview of human capital management and the functions of recruitment and retention, to consider the importance of differentiation in order to recruit and retain teachers in shortage areas, to identify the value proposition for districts in order to attract strong candidates focused on shortage areas, to receive tools to support efforts to recruit and retain teachers in shortage areas, and finally, to use a workbook template during this session to create a district-focused plan for follow-up. This workbook can be used throughout the webinar by pausing your video and turning to the workbook to record the information and reflections as prompted. Or you can listen to the webinar and subsequently find the workbook and use it with your team to develop a plan for retaining teachers in shortage areas. So right now, please access the workbook if you choose to do it during the webinar. Using the prompt, which subject areas were hardest for you to fill for the start of the 2019-2020 and 2021 school years? What subject areas still had vacancies at the start of the year? Record your 2 to 3 top shortage areas in the workbook. We'll begin with an overview of strategic human capital management. A few things to remember about strategic human capital management. We define it as the collective and individual knowledge, skills, and abilities available to apply to an organization's goals. The principles of strategic K-12 human capital work are that it contributes to the quality of the workforce, especially teachers and principals. It aligns to instructional improvement needs. It builds a culture of human capital leadership, and it measures key indicators for continuous improvement. We use a puzzle piece framework to explore the comprehensive body of knowledge as well as activities that comprise an integrated human capital management system. It is depicted as a puzzle because the pieces are connected to one another, and it must be considered as a whole. Ignoring any one of the puzzle pieces leaves an incomplete human capital system. Looking at the puzzle pieces at a high level, they are teacher preparation and recruitment, hiring and selection, induction and assignment, staffing and deployment, performance management, the importance of linking professional development to human resources functions, compensation and benefits, and career management. And you'll note that at the center of the puzzle, connecting all the pieces, are principals as human capital managers who are responsible ultimately for student results at their schools. Human capital data must be used in order to drive progress toward goals. The purpose of the data should be clear. Data is a key lever for change. Some things to remember. Human capital data creates a shared problem definition and aligns goals for progress and improvement. Human capital data should be distributed in a way that conveys information and supports strategic decision-making. It is important to build data into your routines and progress monitoring. At this point, you can enter human capital data you want to begin collecting and/or begin sharing in your workbook. While all data can be useful, it is important to remain focused on what we consider power metrics. What are the overview of key human capital metrics to track? The blue boxes reveal these high-level power metrics. Getting the best talent consistently. Beneath that are some of the data points that you may want to collect and consider as you strive to get the best talent consistently. Secondly, how do you deploy your talent deliberately? Beneath that are several key pieces of data that you may want to consider toward the goal of deploying talent deliberately. And finally, how do you retain and develop strategically? Beneath that, again, are some data points that you may want to consider as you develop actions to retain and develop your workforce. And finally, it is important to deliver human resources services effectively. And so collecting information about how well that goal is being achieved is important in order to continuously improve the human resources services in your district. Now we'll move to recruitment, selection, and retention generally. It is important to think of recruitment and retention as two sides of the same coin. They are not separate from one another. In order to address shortages and fill vacancies, districts often focus primarily on recruitment. But without a focus on retention, you are simply filling a leaky bucket. Districts must focus on building both great recruitment and great retention functions to maximize efforts to get and keep highly effective employees. Principals play a key role that HR cannot, and vice versa. Both are important. Take a quick look at the components of recruitment and selection. In a district's effort to get the best, there are many layers that must be attended to. At the top of the funnel are key functions related to recruitment. You must source candidates, you must screen them, and after you screen them, you have to cultivate them, keep them warm before they move to another offer or another opportunity before the selection process is finished. And as you move into selection, continue to cultivate that candidate pool interview effectively, and then make a strong offer and remain deliberate in your efforts to achieve acceptances of the offers that you make. Diving deeper, here are some components and key considerations of recruitment and selection. On the left-hand side are those components that we just looked at in the funnel. The second column describes those processes when done in a good and effective way. And finally, on the right-hand side are key questions to probe whether or not you are performing this function as effectively as you possibly can. Continuing to push against these key questions will keep you in a cycle of continuous improvement in this important area of recruitment and selection. We always want to adopt a user-informed perspective. So in this case, we are thinking about what are the pain points from a candidate's perspective. Think about time. Is excess time taken completing forms? Is there lots of paperwork? Are multiple visits required to complete hiring? Do candidates experience confusion? Are communications unclear with regard to timing, status, and process? Is it unclear to the candidate who will make a final decision? Look at out-of-pocket costs. Can they be trimmed in any way? And finally, missing items. Are any of these provided in a way that is not efficient and effective? Early hiring is a key strategy. This chart shows that by the months of July and August, hiring is in a red zone. This is when it is least effective because of a diminished pool. Earlier hiring in the cycle, whether that is April or May, or even before that, in hard to staff areas, it may need to begin as early as December, January, February to make certain that connections are being made with top talent. June is the month by which most hiring should be completed in districts. Early hiring yields better candidates. We know this, but this slope chart gives a clear indication why that is the case. If you look at the red line, what it depicts is that the size of the pool diminishes as candidates accept other offers from surrounding districts. At the same time, the blue line too frequently describes how hiring actually occurs in a district, with peak hiring occurring in July and August, when that red line has fallen to its lowest point as the pool is diminished through candidates taking other offers or simply dropping out of the process. We know that early hiring efforts often are hindered by late budget timelines, internal transfer time periods, and/or late identification of vacancies, such as resignations and retirements. Accordingly, it is necessary to mitigate these district processes that may hinder early hiring. We know that research tells us that late hiring not only hinders districts' efforts to hire the best candidates, but also the retention efforts, as late hires are more likely to leave the district in the first few years. As we said earlier, retention requires a cross-functional effort from both school leaders and central office. This chart shows key roles in a district's effort to retain top talent. A school leader plays a foundational and lead role in retention efforts, but human resources also has key functions and roles to play. And principal supervisors really connect this work in a district, providing both support to principals, but also collaboration with central office key staff. Take a minute and look at this chart to identify key roles and how they can be resourced in your own district. We'll pause here to note in your workbook follow-up actions that you and your team desire to take in order to strengthen your recruitment and retention practices. Now we'll move to thinking how differentiation is absolutely necessary in order to address recruitment and retention in shortage areas. It is crucial to develop recruitment messages that align with and reflect the district's and community's core values. On this slide, we show some samples of districts that have created compelling messages about why the district and the community are a place where an educator can apply their core values to the work that they do as an educator. We want to make clear why a candidate should be interested in your district, and importantly, why your school. To do this, you must have a value proposition. It must be strong and well communicated, saying why people should come to your school and or district, and to have a measurable impact on the size of your pool. Differentiated messages for shortage areas build on the foundation of a strong and well-communicated value proposition. And ask yourself, are you finding out why recent hires in shortage areas chose your school and district? Or importantly, why they did not choose your school and district? It is worthwhile to make every effort to find out this information so that you can strengthen the areas where you are not connecting with potential candidates and encouraging them to select your school, your district. Develop your messages and communicate them consistently. If needed, invest in an asset-driven relaunch of your website, use of social media, and training on a district-wide Everyone is an Ambassador program. Use current teachers to tell your story. Establish the key advantages or opportunities that shortage area teachers will experience in your school or district, such as enhanced mentoring, added professional learning opportunities, select committee membership, and other such advantages. Establish key advantages or benefits of working in your school or district, such as competitive salary, benefit information, features like tuition reimbursement, planning time, PLCs, mentoring, cohort approaches, community service, and team building experiences that are offered. But remember, the experience of teachers who choose your school or your district must be consistent with these messages. So tell your best true story. Elicit and address current workforce feedback. Build trust, build a culture of respect and trust. Invest in leadership development. Again, here is an opportunity to use your workbook. Note the follow-up actions you will take to strengthen how you are presenting and communicating the unique characteristics of your district and the value of teaching there. It is suggested that you go to your website, look at it with fresh eyes. Is it powerful? Do candidates in shortage areas find differentiated messages that answer the question, why consider this school? Why consider this district? Again, we want to recognize that the candidate experience is critically important. Every single candidate interaction matters in shortage areas. Consider candidates that have positive experiences. They refer others. They apply again. They tell their social networks. Competition is high, especially in hard to staff subjects we know that employees change jobs frequently, and in hard to staff areas, they will always have other opportunities. Your website is a key tool. Data tells us and research tells us that 57% conduct preliminary research by visiting your website. 89% of candidates abandon an application that has 45 or more questions. Candidates that have negative experience also share those with others, and the danger is that it has a multiplier effect. Great interview experiences lead to accepted offers. 87% say that a positive interview experience changed their minds. 53% say that the most important interview is with the prospective manager, often the principal. Reality must meet expectations. We mentioned this earlier. Whatever you promise, you must deliver. This often leads to early career turnover, and we know that 30% leave a job within the very first 90 days. Here are some best practices with regard to shortage area candidates. Differentiate your outreach. Tier candidates. Prioritize shortage area candidates. Communicate immediately. Let them know you appreciate their interest and reiterate how your school and your district could support them. Schedule consistent communications. Tell them where they stand. Coordinate hiring managers to stay in frequent and consistent communication. Match candidates with district ambassadors to keep them warm. Do not lose candidates while you are even pooling additional candidates for your pool. Ask candidates for what they need from you continually and consistently. Consider hosting an event to network new hires in person or virtually. Shortage area retention must be intentional. Shortage area retention begins with impactful orientation and early career support that meets the needs of teachers new to your district and/or new to teaching. Early career support for shortage area teachers should connect them to their content peers, offering connections across schools and even across districts as needed. Retention efforts by principals must be proactive, individual, and supported by regular stay conversations. A culture of retention must be developed. Here are some school-based strategies with differentiation. New teachers are supported with a mentor. Shortage area teachers are also networked district-wide. Teacher input is sought and valued. Shortage area teachers are included. Special education teachers, for example, often report being excluded from these opportunities for input. There are opportunities for teacher leadership. Shortage area teachers are invited to shape policies and lead initiatives. There are explicit retention discussions, often called stay conversations, and they are held routinely, prioritizing shortage area teachers. Collaboration is meaningful, and there are structures that support peer-to-peer engagement. Here's another opportunity to use your workbook. There is a chart that has recruitment and retention differentiation for each shortage area. Make notes in this chart about ideas, next steps, and possible approaches. Importantly, make a plan to share your ideas or reflections with your team and/or colleagues. This webinar also provides the opportunity for scenario-based learning. You can pause here and access the retention scenario and do it as part of this webinar, or use it with your team post-webinar as a way of thinking more deeply about the aspects of recruitment and retention. If you are doing the scenario at this time, please pause and read the scenario. Then reactivate the webinar and continue by considering what happened here. What do you see as Kevin's role? What do you see as the district role? Noting the graphic in the middle of the page, he needed them, he got them, and now he is losing them. This may sound like experiences principals in your districts have had. Using this scenario can be a great way to connect human resources and principals as partners in thinking about how to retain teachers and school leaders in your district. Here's an opportunity to gather more information, tools, and resources. The Urban Schools Human Capital Academy, which developed this webinar, has an open source repository of tools and information. It can be accessed at the website hrined.org. It is set up as shown on this screen with 4 areas under which are a multitude of tools and resources. The first is visioning and assessing. The second is planning and organizing. The third, where recruitment and retention materials can be found, is implementing strategies. And to the far right is a tab that contains reference materials. Shows how to access the information on this website. As I noted, implementing strategies is the third tab. Once you click on that tab, a list of the tools and resources related to implementing strategies will drop down. Highlighted here are some of the tools that are available relative to recruitment and retention. Here's a list of some relevant tools that can be found on the HR and Education website. As a resource to participants in this webinar, here are some research and articles that may be of interest to you and your team as you dig deeper to understand both the research, the data, as well as responsive strategies that have led to improved retention efforts in districts across the country. So, what questions or suggestions do you have following this virtual session? To share any such suggestions or questions, please contact Megan Steiner, who is the state lead for K-12 Human Capital Strategies School Improvement. Megan's contact information is shown here.